Hello, we're going to talk about things today that nobody else seems to want to talk about or is talking about. That's hence the title of this talk. As I've said before, Russia is at war with the world. Russia is at war with reason because it violates international law, with the genocide that it is committing, and with the illegal and immoral war it is waging in Ukraine, and also with the aggression that it is waging around the world with aggression by penetration, as I've mentioned before and in other articles. They're attacking countries around the world through a number of different means, but it's warfare all the same. It is aggression all the same. They call it hybrid warfare, grayscale warfare, but it's still warfare that is directed at the West. It is directed at other countries and other peoples, and it is immoral, and the Russians started it. Nobody else is going to talk about this except me, apparently. And that's fine because the people need to know that this is a very serious evil that we are confronting in Russia. And this is a very serious threat to world order and peace and prosperity. International law is Catholic. When you violate international law, you're going against the Catholic order. Recently, I gave a talk, and I'll have part of that talk up on the website here very shortly in a couple of days. And I explained the provenance of the ideas of this Catholic world order that we now live in. These ideas are fourfold, as I said before. Number one, the primacy of the person, the focus is on the person. Number two, there's a community of states or nations. It's not an anarchic gathering like John Mearsheimer says. Number three, the rule of law is absolutely essential to the ordering of this society, this community, because when you have a community, that means people look out for each other, they help each other, and law is there to regulate conduct and give norms of conduct and to punish wrongdoers and those who break the law. And then, fourth of all, peace is being the primary purpose of the community and of human activity. America has supported all of these things throughout our history. The provenance for these ideas goes all the way back to the Gospels. And I traced this in this talk that I gave the other day. And part of that talk will, of course, be up on the website. So, America has pursued the Catholic ideal, the Catholic ordering of society on a world, on an international basis. And that is now under attack by the Russians and the Chinese, but primarily right now by the Russians. Somehow, a lot of people, a lot of Catholics don't know what I'm saying. They don't know their own history. They don't know their own contributions to the world. They've been brainwashed. They've been told a lot of lies. And so as a result, they seem to think that some things are true and other things aren't, and they don't understand the gravity of this situation. They think LGBTQ is the only important thing out there, and they don't understand the bigger picture. And so that is what I have been doing for several months now, is telling you the bigger picture, telling you the international society that we are part of and that America is a part of. And America recognized from the day it came to existence, it recognized we're in a community and we better act right and do the right thing. And America has repeatedly. So what you have is you have the conservative and Catholic chatters. They don't know their own history. They don't know how the world is set up in a positive, beneficial way. They've been told to hate it. They've been told to blame the USA for everything. One thing I realized the other day is America's been called an empire. America's not an empire. I've used the term myself, and I was wrong. And America's not an empire. It's never been an empire. What America has done is exercise leadership. Is exercise leadership to keep the peace and ensure prosperity. And of course, what does Russian disinformation do? It says, well, you're an empire, you're an emperor. Okay, right. Well, that's a lie. Okay, so what you're seeing is an attack on right order, on Catholic order. Treaties carry moral obligations, as Suarez and Victoria said, and as a lot of others have said. And the UN Charter is a treaty, and Russia has violated that. Today I'm going to talk about with their unjustified war on Ukraine. Today I'm going to talk about four or five major stories that are in the news. Okay, number one, and this is what's actually I think rather interesting. Stefan Boss from Vatican News, July 9th, 2025. It appeared in Vatican News. Leo XIV is a lawyer. He's a trained canon lawyer, so I'm sure he appreciates law. So, and the importance of law and the fact that international law comes from the Catholics. So, the title of Boss's article is Concerns Mount Over the Use of Chemical Weapons in Ukraine. Western intelligence raises grave concern over Moscow's military conduct, calling for a restraint and investigation. So, what we have right now is we have 1914. And we have World War One. We have trenches. It looks like we have chemical weapons that are now being employed, and all of this is part of Russia's plan for a multipolar order. China's plan for a multipolar order. Russia's idea of nationalism and traditional values is resulting in the same carnage that happened in the First World War. Christian countries, so-called Christian leadership, slaughtering each other. They're revisiting this on the world. They're saying it's a good thing. We're defending our country, is what Putin is saying. And it's surprising the number of educated people who say that, who repeat that disinformation. They're just defending themselves. These are all lies. Russia's not defending itself, it's building an empire. And that is against Catholic doctrine, that is against right order, it's against the natural law. John Epstein wrote about that. I've spoken about that in the Code of International Ethics from 1953, sections 232 and 233. If you are going to have supranationalism, that is against the natural law because it hurts other countries. You have to be able to live with other countries. Russia can't live with other countries because it wants an empire. Okay, that's immoral, and nobody's calling them out except apparently me. So, what is going on with this story? Okay, Boss reports that the Netherlands Prime Minister, Dutch and German intelligence agencies have evidence of Russia's widespread use of banned chemical weapons in Ukraine, raising concerns about the security of Europe and beyond. Dick Schoof spoke to reporters in The Hague, the Dutch city that hosts the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, or the OPCW. And the OPCW oversees the Chemical Weapons Convention, which I'm going to go into in a minute. Schoof says this is serious because we're talking about chemical weapons with potentially deadly effects. He is the Director General of the Dutch General Intelligence and Security Service. The substance in question is chloropicrin, chloro, picrin. In high concentrations and in closed spaces, this substance is lethal. In other situations, it forces people to flee their trenches because they can't stay there, and they're then shot at and killed as they flee. Okay, so that's the reason for the use of this chemical weapon, is to clear the trenches, just like in World War One. Okay, so, Vladimir Putin, who's supposed to be the great Christian warrior of the great Christian country, is revisiting the horrors of World War One. Chloropicrin is listed as a banned choking agent by the OPCW, which was created to implement and monitor compliance with the 1997 Chemical Weapons Convention. So this is a violation of the Chemical Weapons Convention of 1997. 193 countries have signed that convention. It's a treaty. You have a moral obligation to obey it. Russia doesn't care. They're throwing that moral obligation out the window too, like they did the UN Charter and the requirement to keep peace. And so this is yet another example of Russia's lawlessness, of its attack on the Catholic Christian order that we now live in the world. This is part of its attack on international law, and that attack is an attack on reason and all the peoples of the world. Hence, in my view, you need to get a UN force there, or a multinational force in Ukraine, push all the way to Moscow and remove Putin and conduct a change of Russian society. They're screaming for it from all the reports I'm seeing. The people in Russia are tired of this tyranny. You've got another oligarch who lived on the 10th floor of an apartment building, fall out the 17th floor of the apartment building to his death. And so what you're seeing is a crackdown within Russia. And you're seeing the Ukrainians taking the fight into Russia, and that's causing a lot of tension in Russia. So, once again, Catholics and conservatives are quiet. They're just simply quiet about this. They don't want to talk about this. They don't want to talk about the attack on the international order. Second thing I want to talk about is attacks on civilian targets. Again, this is a violation of the law of war. Russia's attacking civilian targets. Okay? Kiev, the Ukrainians attack military targets. Okay? But the Russians are attacking civilian targets. That is against the law of war. That's a war crime. That's illegal. That's an attack on the Christian Catholic order. I condemn it. Everyone else should condemn that, just like they should condemn the chemical weapons attacks, the genocide by the Russians, and also the immoral and illegal attack by Russia. Everybody should condemn that. If that's not being condemned by your favorite chatterer, whoever he or she is, then you got to question, where does the loyalty of that person lie? And how smart are they? must be pretty stupid if not condemning this. Paul Adams, writing for the BBC 2 days ago, I believe it was, had an article: deadly new Russian drone and missile attack hits Kiev. Massive overnight Russian attack hits Kiev's capital. Hits Ukraine's capital, Kiev, killing at least 2 people and injuring 16, said President Volodymyr Zelensky. It involved 18 missiles and 400 drones, primarily targeting the capital. Resident sleep was interrupted for 3 hours as drones and missiles converged on the capital. Authorities in Kiev said the drone wreckage struck the roof of a residential building and fires burned across the city. In June, Ukraine recorded the highest monthly civilian casualties in 3 years, with 232 people killed and 1,343 injured, according to the United Nations. Now, I just read, I believe it was the Institute for the Study of Warfare, that said last night, the evening of July 11th through 12th, there was another Russian drone attack on Kiev. I believe it was 400 to 500 drones that were launched, again, at civilian targets. Okay, finding violations of human rights. Item number 3. This is a big deal. From Al Jazeera, July 9th. Top European rights court says Russia broke international law in Ukraine. Judges also ruled that Russia was behind the downing of Malaysia Airlines Flight 17 in 2014, which killed 298 people. Remember that? Remember that? How that was blamed on the Ukrainians by a lot of chatterers that some people like in the West? Huh? Remember that? Yeah, okay. So the article goes on and says judges at the European Court of Human Rights also ruled on Wednesday that Russia was behind the downing of Malaysia Airlines Flight 17, MH17, the first time Moscow was named by an international court as being responsible for the 2014 tragedy that killed 298 people. Judges at the Strasbourg court are ruling on 4 cases brought by Ukraine and the Netherlands against Russia, encompassing a wide range of alleged human rights violations relating to the conflict, including the downing of MH17 and the kidnapping of Ukrainian children. Any decision will be largely symbolic. The complaints were brought before the court's governing body, expelled in 2022 following the country's invasion of Ukraine, but families of the victims of MH17 disaster see the decision as an important milestone in their 11-year quest for justice. Again, we're the conservative and Catholic voices condemning the human rights violations of the Russians. Where are they? Well, what some of them are doing is they're trying to get you to think that there's no Russian conspiracy. It's like kind of like saying the devil's favorite trick is to have you believe there's no devil, and that is the devil's favorite trick. He says, "Hey, I don't really exist." So the Russians say, "Well, there's really no conspiracy. It's somebody else. It you know, must be the Jews. It must be the Israelis." So this is the game that's being played, and you have to understand that the Russians are doing a lot of bad stuff to destroy the Western order and to attack us and attack our allies. What you do see, what you do see is you see conservatives, Catholics, and others engage in identity politics, staring at their navels. They cannot see things rightly. They've forgotten the fact that they're Americans, that they have a history, that they're Catholics, that they have a history, and that they have had, and Catholics have had an impact and created international law, and that this great system that's been set up for all these 80 years at the end of World War II is now under attack, and things are going to be worse. Things are going to be worse because Russia wants to wipe Ukraine off the map. It wants to destroy Ukraine. It's an existential fight for Ukraine. And so you have Vladimir Zelensky and others fighting to defend the Catholic Christian order. And so it puts a lie to all these anti-Semites out there who are always blaming Jews for everything, because Volodymyr Zelensky is fighting to defend international law and the Catholic structure. He's upholding the charter and right order in his fight, as are other people that are working with him and fighting with him, as are the Ukrainian people themselves. So what you have is you have nationalist countries like Hungary and Slovakia, nationalism, blocking the efforts of the EU and others to help the Ukrainians. So you see where nationalism is serving the Russians, okay? It's serving their geopolitical goals. I mean, it's, you can look this stuff up and you can see it. It's there. Orban is always talking, against Ukraine. Recently, he said on Twitter that the war's over, Ukraine's lost. There is some movement by the Russian forces around Kharkiv, but there's movement by Ukrainian forces along the front too. So there is this nationalist push to support Russia and to attack the West, to betray the West. And this is really egregious what Orban is doing. He's a despicable individual, just like the guy in Slovakia is, Fico. He's another despicable individual. He's just a Russian toady, and he's there to make sure that Putin gets his geopolitical goals. And what that's going to be is, if Putin wins, it'll be a sphere of influence going back to Soviet days when people are going to just simply be crushed and in the name of ethnicity and religion. You'll get your ethnicity and religion, but you're going to be crushed slowly. So this is why we must fight, we must resist, and I think people are starting to wake up, and that's why the New York Post posted that cover page that I put on the screenshot that I put on this video. You can see people are starting to wake up. They're starting to realize this is serious. We have to defeat Russia. We have to remove Putin. Okay, so let's see if that's all I want to talk about. That. Okay. All right. So you have to help. You have to help the Ukrainians. There are a number of different ways to do that. There's White Stork that's out there. The United Nations, HCR, UNHCR. I'm drawing a blank. Human Rights Commission. I think is UNHCR, Human Rights Commission. UNHCR. You got to look that up. They've got ads. There's a way you can send money there. There are other groups. There's a guy by the name of Jake Bro. He's on Twitter and YouTube. He raises money to help the Ukrainian army. There's even apparently a Legion for the Defense of Ukraine in Europe that's looking for volunteers to fight. By the way, something that just came to my attention, it just popped up here, is a list of the 10 biggest disinformation sources on Ukraine. Okay, and this comes from Jake Bro, and Bro has them listed here. It's through Grok, through AI. First one is Elon Musk. The second one is Tucker Carlson. Third one is Tim Pool, Jackson Hinkle, Jordan Peterson, Tulsi Gabbard, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Scott Ritter. I didn't know he was so low on the list. George Galloway and Benny Johnson. So these guys pump out the disinformation. Um, But if you look at some of the big Catholic chatters like Jack Posobiec, looks like he is hoping Russia defeats Ukraine, according to one of his latest tweets. And this is despicable. He's a despicable individual who is operating against the best interests of the Catholics and against the peoples of the world and against the United States. But he's allied with Steve Bannon. And Steve Bannon, if you look at his Twitter feed, he doesn't care about Ukraine either. And Steve Bannon is a bad guy. And he is an enemy of the United States and of America and of Catholics. That's all I got for today. Long live Ukraine. Long live the United States of America. Let's defend this world order. We shall prevail.